So this is Miss Robinson, and we're going to go through notes with chemical reactions and the law of conservation of mass. So we already talked about chemical reactions being part of. So we've already talked about chemical reactions, and we're going to take it a step further. I'm sorry, and sort of explain why we do what we do. All right. So the chemical reaction, you saw that. Excuse me, you saw color change, the temperature, gas formation, and solid formation. Well, with a chemical reaction, is taking an element and a compound and putting them together. So right here we have the element iron and oxygen. So we have Fe and we have oxygen, which is O2. All right, and now we're putting them together to make into an equation. All right, so we're going to make iron oxide. Sorry for the pen. And that's a 3. All right, so it's going to be something like that. So actually combining these things together. So we have an iron, which is sort of a solid metal, and now we're getting this iron oxide, which is going to be the same thing. So it's taking what we did here, combining chemicals in class like yesterday, and now we're putting it in an equation. Okay. So remember, it's a process of elements and compounds combining to form new substances. All right, so the law of conservation of mass. So one important thing that comes from this is the law of conservation of mass or matter. You may see either way on EOG or a test or something like that, but just be familiar with that. It's either mass or matter. Okay, but this is basically, there's 3 interpretations of the definition, but I want you to understand is that matter cannot be destroyed, neither created. All right, so if I'm making a sweet potato pie for Thanksgiving, which mine is really good, and I start with a bunch of sweet potatoes, and then I'm going to have to cut them, peel them, and mash them up, and all that good stuff. My end product is still going to be the sweet potato pie. It's still sweet potatoes. Only thing I've done is change the form of that sweet potato. All right, so at the end, I still have the sweet potato pie and the sweet potato. So it can't just go poof and go away. It has to be equaled out. Okay. Now we have in a reaction, the total mass of the reactants has to equal the total number of products. Okay, so if I have 8 grams of sugar at the beginning of a reaction, I'm going to have to end with 8 grams, regardless of if it's sugar or not. It could be distributed in different types and different kinds of ways, but it's still going to equal. So I started out with 8 grams and I ended with 8 grams. If we were to do a lab and I started off with a combination of things that equaled 10 grams, and if we do the reaction, I have to remeasure everything at the end, and it should be 10 grams. It may not be the same form, but it could be redistributed, and because it's combined differently, but they're still going to be equal. Okay, and all atoms that are present in the reactants must be equally represented in the product. So now the last thing you have to think about, especially now since we're going to be balancing equations, that all of the atoms that are present in the reactants have to be equally represented in the product. It doesn't have to be the same. If I have oxygen and I've got oxygen at the beginning attached to a hydrogen, in my product, it could be attached to a carbon. That's okay. So it's saying all of my oxygens are present and they're still equal. So this is what we're going to be doing when we get into balancing equations. All right, so chemical equations. So it's basically they describe the chemical reaction using the chemical formulas, subscripts, and coefficients. Okay. What we can do, you can change coefficients, okay, but we cannot change our subscript, Okay, so get that out of your head now. You can change your coefficient, which is this number here, the big number in the front, but we cannot change our subscripts. Okay, and this is your chemical formula right here. Okay. So the difference between a subscript and a coefficient is really not a big difference because they're both representing a number of atoms. The difference is that the number is written with the coefficient, the number is written before the chemical formula, and it can be changed. So remember, that can be changed. But you have your subscript, it's the number at the bottom right of the chemical formula, and that cannot be changed, okay? So there is no subscript I can change. I cannot change it. But there is one I cannot change, and that's the subscript. I can change the coefficient. You can also add a coefficient if it doesn't work. Okay, so with balancing equations, so how to balance an equation. So I'm going to take you through a step-by-step, the word way of balancing equations. That's going to be in your notes, and then we're going to practice together tomorrow. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is count up the number of atoms. Okay, so if I take a look at, so we want to make sure we count the number of atoms in each element in the reactants, and this is our products, remember. Okay, so I have one one Na, I have one chlorine. Okay, I have, and over here I have one Na, but I have two Cl's here. So right off the bat, we know that it's not a balanced equation. I'm going to have to balance this, and I'm going to have to take the balance where we're going to have to make another one. So we're going to have to add a chlorine somewhere. So it's not like it just poof automatically appeared. Right here, something happened. It reacted to make a product. Okay. So we're going to make the equation balance correctly. So how do you balance the equation? So you're going to have to use coefficients to add atoms to both the product of reactant or both. Okay. So to start off with this, we know it's out of balance. We have that Cl2 right here. Okay. I added a coefficient here. I added 2. And that goes to both the NaCl. It goes together, okay? So what I do for one, I have to do for the other. So the focus was getting this balance well to do what I have to do. So you have to multiply the the 2 by the NaCl. So that's basically distributed, okay, to both NaCl. Okay, so the only way I could do that is by adding that coefficient, which by 2, multiplying by 2, and so then now the Cl's are, by adding that, the coefficient, my Cl's are unbalanced. Okay, the problem might create my NAs. My NAs right here are now not balanced. Simple solution: add a coefficient to the product on the product side. So we added the 2 right here, okay? And now we have, so now it reads this. I have 2 NaCl's. So now it reads I have 2 NaCl's, and I have 2 Nas here, okay? Plus I have Cl2. Now we have balanced the equation, okay? So I've had too many kids try to insert that 2 right here, and you can't do that, okay? You cannot do that. That NaCl right here goes together. So what happens to one must happen to another, okay? So please make sure you don't accidentally do that. So we balance the equations. We put the 2 over here. We put the 2 here, okay? So that we started with 2 Cl's. So we started off here with 2 CLs, then we can go over here to make sure that we can distribute evenly. Okay, so now we're done because we've balanced the equation. Okay, but your subscripts, remember, they do not change. Remember, we're going step by step by the word version. Though we've already balanced the equation, I'm going step by step based on your definitions and your vocabulary. So remember, to balance the equation, you cannot change the subscript. It seems easy, like I just said, adding that little 2 right here. But remember, you cannot put that down in that bottom corner. You just can't do that. All right, we have to use what we're given. Remember, we're given this, and we have to use this to fix this. Okay, all right. So remember, your subscripts are at the bottom of your chemical formula. Your coefficients are in the beginning of your formula or your reactants, to make sure they're balanced on both sides. Tomorrow we're going to do lots of practice with balancing equations. You're going to have to do some multiplication, some adding, and to be able to be smart about it, you have to make sure you practice and make sure you take thorough notes. You're going to be taking your video notes quiz shortly. If you have any questions, please raise your hand and ask me. Thank you.